what really happened behind the scenes of Full Custom Garage. Today, we dive deep into the heartbreaking tragedy of Ian Roussel from Full Custom Garage, the story of loss, struggle, and resilience that few fans ever saw coming. Stay with us as we uncover the untold chapters of Ian's life that changed everything. In the vast landscape of automotive customization, few names resonate as profoundly as Ian Roussel. Born on November 19, 1970, in Sunland, California, Ian's journey into the world of custom cars began at the tender age of 14, when his grandmother offered him an old Volkswagen Beetle, challenging him to get it running. Ian embraced the task with fervor. This early experience ignited a passion that would define his life's work. By the late 1990s, Ian had established himself in Sun Valley, California, where he began crafting custom vehicles that defy conventional design. Drawing inspiration from legends like Gene Winfield, Ed Big Daddy Roth, and George Barris, Ian developed a unique style that blended traditional craftsmanship with avant-garde creativity. His ability to transform scrap materials into automotive masterpieces earned him the moniker Master of Metal among fans and peers alike. Ian's reputation for innovative designs and hands-on fabrication caught the attention of television producers, leading to the debut of his show, Full Custom Garage, in 2014. The series offered viewers an unfiltered look into Ian's workshop, showcasing his process of building custom vehicles from the ground up. Unlike other automotive shows that relied heavily on digital renderings and large teams, Ian's approach was refreshingly authentic, just a man, his tools, and unyielding vision. Over the years, Full Custom Garage has captivated audiences with its blend of creativity, technical skill, and storytelling. Ian's projects range from resurrecting vintage hot rods to crafting entirely new vehicles that challenge the boundaries of automotive design. His dedication to the craft and willingness to take risks have solidified his status as a pioneer in the custom car community. Beyond the workshop, Ian's influence extends to car shows and events across the country. His creations have been featured at prestigious gatherings like the SEMA Show, where enthusiasts and professionals alike marvel at his ingenuity. Despite his success, Ian remains grounded, often crediting his inspirations and collaborators for their contributions to his journey. As we delve deeper into Ian Roussel's story, we'll explore the personal and professional challenges he's faced, the resilience he's demonstrated, and the legacy he's building in the world of custom automotive fabrication. Ian Roussel may have built his reputation in the buzzing car culture of Southern California, but his heart was calling somewhere quieter, somewhere farther off the map. In the early 2020s, Ian and his wife, Jamie, made a bold decision, one that would redefine not only his work, but his life. They packed up and left the comfort of established workshops and urban supply chains to the stark, sun-scorched stillness of the Mojave Desert. For most people, the desert is a place to pass through. For Ian, it became home. The move wasn't just about scenery. It was a conscious retreat into solitude, focus, and freedom. With open space in every direction and the nearest neighbor miles away, Ian carved out a new kind of garage in the middle of nowhere. There, free from city noise and distractions, he could build without limits. But the move wasn't only about cars. It was deeply personal. Ian's wife, Jamie, a military veteran and registered nurse, found her own peace in the quiet of the desert. A fiercely private couple, Ian and Jamie chose this remote life to protect what mattered most to them, each other and their family. They live alongside their 2 children, raising them away from the chaos of celebrity life and closer to the grounding forces of nature, craft, and family connection. Life in the Mojave isn't for the faint of heart. Summer temperatures can soar beyond 110 degrees. Winters bring freezing winds, and the nearest hardware store, hours away. But for Ian, this environment fuels his creativity. His makeshift compound includes a workshop filled with raw steel, rusted parts, and half-formed visions of vehicles the world has never seen. He welds, hammers, and sculpts through the heat and dust, driven by a relentless commitment to his craft. Ian's fans were stunned when glimpses of this off-grid lifestyle first surfaced online. In short behind-the-scenes clips and rare interviews, viewers saw not just a builder, but a man who'd chosen a different way to live. He wasn't chasing the fame that often surrounds automotive TV stars. He was building because he had to, because the process was his passion, and the desert gave him the space to do it without compromise. But as idyllic as it may seem, life in the Mojave comes with challenges that would soon put Ian and his family to the test. The harsh desert climate, the isolation, and the unpredictability of nature would soon converge a way that no one, not even Ian, could have seen coming. Because while the desert may have given him space to breathe, it also had the power to take everything away. Ian Roussel had always thrived in the Mojave's extremes. He embraced the dust, the heat, the howling winds. It was all part of the landscape that sharpened his edge and inspired his creativity. But in early 2023, that very environment turned hostile. Without warning, the remote desert that had once been his sanctuary became a scene of devastation. It started with an unseasonal storm, just a murmur on the weather reports, nothing major. But the clouds rolled in faster than expected, and the rain didn't just fall, it hammered. Within hours, the dry, cracked earth of Ian's property transformed into a raging floodplain. Water surged to the compound, crashing into workshops, lifting equipment, and tearing apart months of unfinished work. The Metal Master's creations, some mid-build and irreplaceable, were swept away or buried under inches of thick desert mud. Worse still, part of the roof on Ian's main workshop was torn off during the storm's peak winds. His prized tools, some of them custom-built or decades old, were exposed to the elements. Expensive fabrication gear was left rusting, while electrical systems shorted out in the flood. The damage was more than just physical, it was personal. Every project in that workshop held a piece of Ian's vision, and seeing it all come undone in a matter of hours was a gut punch. At the same time, his family wasn't spared. While Ian worked to secure the shop, his wife Jamie and their kids scrambled to protect their living space. As water seeped into their home, they had no choice but to evacuate parts of property. For a man who had always prided himself on self-sufficiency and control, watching his world unravel was nothing short of heartbreaking. Fans didn't hear the full story until weeks later, when brief clips surfaced on social media showing Ian surveying the damage in silence. No dramatic monologues, no flashy production, just Ian, knee-deep in mud, dragging a mangled metal frame from the wreckage. The silence in those clips said more than words ever could. The community quickly rallied. Fellow builders, fans, and even competitors reached out with messages of support. Some offered tools, others offered manpower. But rebuilding wouldn't be fast, and it certainly wouldn't be easy. Insurance barely covered the basics, and replacing what was lost meant more than money. It meant starting over. Still, there was no public breakdown, no angry rants or emotional interviews. Ian simply got back to work, piece by piece. But those close to him knew this was a breaking point. Not just physically, but emotionally. The desert that once gave Ian Roussel everything had nearly taken it all away. But as you'll see next, that wasn't the end of Ian's troubles. Just as Ian Roussel began picking up the pieces after the storm ravaged his desert compound, a new kind of trouble started brewing. And this time, it wasn't weather-related. It was financial. Quiet whispers began surfacing online, and before long, Ian found himself tangled in a controversy that no one saw coming. A messy dispute over money, trust, and public accountability. It all started with a supposed collaboration, one that sounded promising at first. Ian had apparently agreed to invest in a project tied to a lesser-known YouTube creator who operated in the same custom car space. The pitch? A new build series, partially funded by Ian, with cross-promotion between both channels. On paper, it made sense. Ian's audience would get fresh content, and the smaller creator would benefit from Ian's legendary status. But behind the scenes, things fell apart fast. Rumors began surfacing in late 2023 on Reddit and car forums. According to multiple users, including self-proclaimed insiders, the collaboration dissolved after Ian allegedly fronted thousands of dollars for materials that were never delivered. Some claimed the other party ghosted him. Others suggested it was a miscommunication. But as the speculation grew louder, one thing became clear. Ian wasn't just dealing with creative losses in the storm. He was now facing a financial mess that played out in front of thousands. Fans were divided. Some jumped to Ian's defense, arguing that the custom car legend was being taken advantage of by a clout-chasing amateur. Others pointed out that there were no contracts, no formal agreements, just a handshake and some shared trust, which in the business world can quickly turn into a trap. To make matters worse, Ian remained tight-lipped publicly, which only added fuel to fire. His silence was interpreted in a dozen different ways. Some saw it as maturity, others saw it as guilt, and a few even accused him of hiding something bigger. Regardless of what actually happened, the controversy painted a rare picture of vulnerability for a man usually seen as iron-willed and unstoppable. And the ripple effects didn't stop there, with rumors swirling. Some sponsors reportedly backed away from smaller partnerships. Build timelines were delayed. Orders for custom parts were quietly canceled. Even though Ian hadn't been formally accused of wrongdoing, the association with drama was enough to slow down momentum that he'd spent years building. For a guy who prided himself on keeping things raw, real, and unfiltered, this ordeal cut deep. He wasn't used to dealing with internet gossip or comment section wars. His world was made of steel and sweat, not speculation. Yet suddenly, his name was being debated on forums instead of celebrated on TV. Still, through it all, Ian didn't lash out. No tell-all video. No drama-fueled rebuttal. He just kept building, quietly, methodically, but if you looked closely, you could see it in his eyes during his next public appearance. The frustration, the weariness, the weight, and just when fans thought they might not see him on screen again, Ian made a move no one expected. Just when everyone thought Ian Roussel might be stepping back from the spotlight for good, he did what no one expected. He came roaring back, louder and bolder than ever. After the storm, the money controversy, and months of relative silence, Ian quietly returned to the place he felt most at home, the garage. But this wasn't just a normal comeback. This was personal. And the builds that followed? They were some of the wildest, most boundary-pushing projects Ian had ever taken on. In early 2024, whispers started spreading that full custom garage was back in production. Fans noticed subtle hints online. Quick Instagram clips, shots of raw metal, and teaser photos showing unfinished car frames with no captions. Then, without warning, a new episode dropped. No announcement, no big trailer. Just Ian back in the shop, grinding steel like nothing had happened. But something had changed. The cars he was building weren't just creative. They were chaotic, experimental, and in some cases, borderline unhinged. One of his first comeback projects? A Frankenstein fusion of a 40s Ford pickup and the roof of a vintage Chrysler Airflow, all mounted on a low-riding race chassis. The design was brutal, aggressive, and completely unique. It looked like something from a post-apocalyptic movie, and fans couldn't get enough. Another build took the form of an open-wheel rod styled after 1930s dirt racers, but with a body built entirely from salvaged aircraft parts. Ian's eye for shape and form had somehow sharpened in the chaos. These weren't just custom cars. They were sculptures on wheels, expressions of a man who had weathered the storm and came out with something to say. Behind the scenes, Ian worked almost entirely alone. Without the fanfare of a big team or production crew, the show felt more stripped down than ever. And that's what made it even more powerful. Viewers were getting raw footage of a guy pushing metal around in a desert shop. Not for fame, not for money, but because it was the one thing he could still control. And perhaps most shockingly, Ian began speaking more directly to the camera. Still soft-spoken, still calm, but there was a shift. He started dropping small, reflective comments about the hardships of the past year. A mention of losing tools. A nod to bad deals. A moment of silence while staring at an unfinished frame. He never spelled it all out, but the emotion was real and fans noticed. The episode views surged. People didn't just want to see cars. They wanted to see the man behind them and how he was coping. Ian had never branded himself as a content creator, but somehow, through honesty and resilience, he became something even rarer. A real artist, pushing through pain and building beauty from wreckage. But while Ian's return was a triumph, it wasn't the end of his troubles. Because right as things were finally stabilizing, a health scare in the family sent shockwaves through his world once again. While Ian Roussel was capturing the admiration of fans with his incredible post-storm builds, there was something happening behind the scenes. Something he never brought up on camera, but that weighed heavily on everything he did. Because while the metalwork continued and the show slowly regained traction, Ian and his wife Jamie were facing a private battle that had nothing to do with tools or television. Jamie Roussel, Ian's partner in life and often his quiet supporter off-screen, had begun experiencing a series of unexplained health issues in mid-2024. At first, it was small things, fatigue, dizziness, and recurring pain that didn't quite add up. But as time passed, the symptoms intensified. And despite her background in medicine, Jamie is a registered nurse with military experience. Even she couldn't quite put her finger on what was happening. Ian, known for rarely discussing personal matters, suddenly began showing subtle signs of strain. His episodes became more sporadic. Some builds slowed or were left unfinished. And though he never made any official announcement, longtime fans noticed that Jamie, who occasionally appeared in his older behind-the-scenes content, was no longer visible at all. In a rare live-stream Q&A with fans, Ian offered the faintest window into what was going on. When asked about how things were at home, he paused, then simply said, "We're dealing with some health stuff, but we're strong. We'll get through it." No drama, no self-pity, just a quiet statement that carried more weight than anything else he said that day. Those close to the Roussels say that Ian became even more fiercely protective during this time. He cut back on outside collaborations, refused interviews, and focused solely on being present, at home and in the shop. While some fans wondered if Full Custom Garage might be winding down again, those who understood Ian best knew better. He was still fighting, but this time, the battle was deeply personal. Sources close to the couple hinted that Jamie was undergoing a series of tests for what was possibly a rare autoimmune condition. There was no official diagnosis shared publicly, but the emotional toll was obvious. For a man like Ian, who finds comfort in the physical world of machines and metal, the helplessness of watching a loved one suffer was its own kind of pain. He couldn't weld this problem away. He couldn't hammer it into submission. All he could do was be there. And that's exactly what he did. Project slowed down. The show took a quiet backseat. And Ian stood by Jamie the way she had always stood by him. From the early days in Sun Valley, to the windswept Mojave, to the flooded shop and financial setbacks. It was a side of Ian most fans had never seen before. The builder, the craftsman, but most of all the husband, the protector. And yet, even as the storm raged inside his home, fate wasn't finished testing Ian Roussel. For someone like Ian Roussel, whose entire life was built on resilience, pain was never something he wore publicly. He kept things close, quiet, controlled. But even the strongest metal can crack under enough pressure. And in the fall of 2024, Ian faced a personal loss that would reshape not only his work, but his identity. The details were never fully made public, and that was intentional. Ian never released a statement. No tribute post. No farewell message. But fans who had followed him closely pieced things together from subtle changes in behavior and from the words of those around him. What became clear was this. Someone close to Ian, very close, had passed away. Some believed it was a family member. Others speculated it was a longtime friend or mentor from his early days in the hot rod scene. The exact details didn't matter as much as the impact, and the impact was unmistakable. Ian's content stopped. Not paused, stopped. No new builds. No new episodes. No updates. Just silence. For nearly 2 months, his once active pages went completely dark. Fans who knew his work ethic and rhythm were stunned. He wasn't the type to disappear without reason. When he finally resurfaced, it wasn't with a flashy car or over-the-top reveal. Instead, Ian posted a single photo to his Instagram, a bare, unfinished frame of a car sitting alone in his desert shop. No caption, just that. And in that silence, the message was deafening. When he did return to work, something was different. His first new build following a hiatus wasn't wild or experimental. It was deeply personal. A sleek, matte black custom coupe, stripped down, refined, almost like a visual eulogy. Viewers described it as haunting, beautiful, quiet, the kind of car that told a story without saying a word. In a later episode, Ian made a rare comment, offhand, almost whispered. While adjusting the rear suspension, he said, "This one's for someone who's not here anymore." He didn't elaborate. He didn't have to. That build, now nicknamed the Shadow Car by fans, became a symbol, not just a loss, but survival. Ian was grieving, but he was also creating, channeling the pain into something tangible. And that's what made it so powerful. The car wasn't flashy. It wasn't designed for attention. It was an expression of memory, loss, and quiet strength. For the first time, the man who had built his career on wild, head-turning creations had built something to reflect what couldn't be fixed. But even as he tried to move forward, fans began wondering, how much more could Ian take? How long could he keep pushing, keep building, keep surviving? Because whether he admitted it or not, the man behind Full Custom Garage was slowly being worn down. And what came next would force him to face a decision he had spent years avoiding. By early 2025, the whispers had turned into full-blown speculation. Was Ian Roussel done? Had Full Custom Garage finally run its course? The silence after his emotional build, the one fans had dubbed the shadow car, lasted longer than anyone expected. For weeks, then months, no new content dropped. Ian's social media remained minimal. No teasers, no updates, and most telling of all, no signs of filming at the shop. For a man known to create almost constantly, this shift didn't feel like a break. It felt like a farewell. Then came the posts, not from Ian himself, but from other custom builders and fans within the tight-knit hot rod community. A few mentioned in passing that Ian was considering stepping away. One comment, buried in a forum thread, claimed that Ian had privately said he was tired of the grind and ready to just live a quieter life. Whether those comments were real or not didn't matter. The story caught fire. Fans flooded Ian's inbox and comment sections with the same questions. Is the show over? Are you retiring? Is this the end of Full Custom Garage? For a while, Ian said nothing. And in the absence of answers, speculation only grew. Some claimed he was burned out. Others assumed he couldn't financially sustain the show after losing sponsors. A few even theorized he was working on a totally new, secret project. But then, in a short, low-key podcast appearance with a fellow builder, not a major media outlet, but a friend, Ian addressed it. And true to form, his answer was anything but conventional. When asked if Full Custom Garage was over, Ian paused for a long time. Then he smiled and simply said, "I'll build until my hands stop working. That's not going to change. Whether there's a camera or not doesn't really matter." It wasn't a yes. It wasn't a no. But it was Ian. He never cared much about fame, about numbers, or about chasing algorithms. He started building cars in a dusty shop with no crew, no budget, no rules. That's where he thrived. And while the industry around him became more polished, more commercialized, Ian stayed rooted in that raw, stripped-down way of working. Still, the pressure was real. Running a solo show, especially one that involved massive builds, editing, scheduling, and logistics, was more than a full-time job. It was a constant grind. And after years of physical labor, emotional losses, and personal battles, fans couldn't blame him if he wanted to walk away. But here's the thing. Ian Roussel isn't wired like most people. When most people slow down, he gears up. When most people take breaks, he builds. And so, while the world kept asking if Ian was retiring, he was already back in the garage, working on something no one had seen before. While rumors of Ian Roussel's retirement buzzed across forums and social media, Ian was doing exactly what he's always done. Staying quiet, staying focused, and working behind closed doors. But this time, what he was building wasn't just another Wild Rod or Frankenstein project. It was something more personal, more symbolic, and unlike anything fans had seen from him before. There were no previews, no dramatic reveals. Just a sudden post on a random Wednesday morning. A single photo of an old, rust-covered shell, a 1957 Chevy Nomad. No context, no caption, just that, to the casual observer, it was just another junkyard relic. But to those who knew Ian, this choice wasn't random at all. The Nomad was a legendary car in hot rod culture, iconic, rebellious, and rare. But this particular one wasn't for a customer. It wasn't for a TV segment. It was for him. And that's what made fans stop scrolling. Over the next few weeks, eagle-eyed followers began spotting tiny glimpses of the build in the background of old video clips, tool bench reflections, and blurred Instagram stories. The frame had been stripped to bare metal. Every weld looked hand-done. No flashy paint. No bolt-on kits. Ian was building this thing from the bones up, completely custom, and completely alone. Word began spreading that the car wasn't just a build. It was a tribute, though Ian never confirmed it outright. Close friends and community quietly shared that the Nomad was connected to someone Ian had lost. Some said it was a car he'd always dreamed of building for his father. Others believed it was linked to Jamie, his way of processing everything they'd been through during her health battle. Whatever the truth was, it didn't matter, because the way he worked on that car said everything. Each panel was shaped by hand. The chassis was custom fab from raw steel, a callback to Ian's earliest garage days. He wasn't cutting corners. He wasn't filming every moment. He was building it like a craftsman with something to say, but no need to speak. And slowly, the story started revealing itself. He posted a close-up shot of the dashboard, engraved with initials no one recognized. A photo of a sun visor etched with lyrics from a classic rock song about survival. A custom hood ornament shaped like a phoenix. Ian wasn't explaining anything directly, but each piece of the car became a puzzle. A story of loss, of rebirth, of legacy. One fan wrote in a comment, "This isn't a car. It's a memory you can drive." That Nomad build, still unfinished at the time of this video, became one of the most anticipated in full custom garage history. Not because it was the biggest or the flashiest, but because for the first time, Ian Roussel was building something purely for himself. But while this project gave Ian something to focus on, the outside world hadn't forgotten. Viewers still had questions, and one in particular would force Ian to finally speak directly to his fans. After years of ups and downs, heartbreak, and triumph, Ian Roussel finally broke his silence in early 2025. Not with a flashy announcement or a big production, but with a simple, heartfelt video posted on his personal social channels. In that video, Ian spoke directly to his fans, not as the wild custom car builder everyone knew, but as a man who had faced immense personal challenges and was still standing. He thanked viewers for sticking with him through the silence, the rumors, and the setbacks. And he made it clear, Full Custom Garage wasn't ending. It was evolving. Ian explained that the last couple of years had been the hardest of his life. He referenced the loss he endured, the health battles his wife faced, and the toll it took on him physically and emotionally. But he also talked about the power of building, the way shaping metal helped him cope, heal, and keep moving forward. He shared that the current Nomad project was more than just a car. It was a tribute to everyone who had helped him through the darkest times. A symbol of resilience, survival, and love. And while it might not be the biggest or most outrageous build he's ever done, it was the most meaningful. Ian also promised fans that Full Custom Garage would continue, but with a new focus. The flashy, over-the-top projects would still be there sometimes, but he wanted to bring more of his story, his struggles, and his creative process into the spotlight. No more hiding behind the machines. This time, he was inviting viewers into his world, warts and all. The reaction was immediate and powerful. Fans flooded the comments with support, sharing their own stories of hardship and resilience. The community that had grown around Ian and his builds became stronger than ever, united not just by cars, but by the very human story behind them. Looking ahead, Ian hinted at more projects, collaborations, and even new formats for the show, ones that focus less on spectacle and more on the craft and the story. He seemed ready to redefine what Full Custom Garage could be. Not just a series about building cars, but a journey about life, loss, and the power of creativity to heal. And that's the real legacy Ian Roussel is building, one welded joint at a time. Thanks for watching and sticking with us through Ian Roussel's incredible story. If you found this video eye-opening, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives like this. Until next time, keep building and stay curious.